Hello guys and welcome to another video. My name is Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor. And in today's video, we're talking about one of the biggest traps people fall into, and that is the trap of car finance. And what I wanted to do today is just outline how dangerous it can be, but also show an alternative way of financing a car and how to buy a dream car using one property. And it's something I've done myself. I'm even so confident as to tell you the address of the property that I bought that was able to produce enough income to buy my wife her dream SQ7. So guys, let's get into the video and talk all about that. But before we do, if you could give this video a big like, it really does help me out with the algorithm. And if you haven't already subscribed, why not consider subscribing? As always, subscribe a dividend portfolio. It is growing, £9,500 in there now, and we will be drawing another lucky winner for me to pay those dividends out to on the 10th of next month. So guys, let's get into the video, let's talk about it, let's go through the data. So I think the first thing to do is quantify the cost of buying a car. And we need to think of this in two ways. Firstly, we can think of it as the raw cost. So we're going to go through the data, but you're going to find out that it's going to cost about £7,000 a year for the average person to buy and run the average car. Now that isn't the true cost though, because the true cost is that that money is paid for, generally speaking, after tax. So you might have to earn 10 grand in order to pay 7. Maybe you're a higher taxpayer and you have to earn 14 grand in order to pay 7. So there's a big difference in those two things. And the other thing that I would argue is also we need to look at the opportunity cost. So if we didn't spend that 7 grand on the car, what would the opportunity with that money be? And I'm going to give you some examples of what you could do with it and how a small amount of delay in gratification could end up with a great result for you in the long run. I myself have practiced this. I did not buy a new or an expensive car until I had passive income that covered the cost of that car. So I have practiced this, although I will admit I didn't think about it as clearly as I do today. At the time, I just kind of did it naturally, that I couldn't afford it, I didn't want the extra payment, it didn't put any money in my pocket. But I didn't really think of it as clearly as today, where I go, well, it's a liability, I need an asset to pay for that liability. So my thought process wasn't quite there, but I did it naturally, and I'm so glad I avoided this trap. So the average PCP agreement for a new car at the moment is between £300 and £400 per month. Now, what we would consider an average car to be is probably like a Ford Focus, right? And I found a PCP agreement for a Ford Focus at £350 a month, bang in the middle of that. So I think that's probably about right. And if you look at the average running costs for that car, about £220 a month on fuel, insurance, servicing, MOTs, road tax, all that sort of stuff sounds about reasonable, doesn't it? So we're looking at £579 a month times 12 gives us almost £7,000 a year. It's a huge amount of money out of a monthly wage. An average wage of about £30,000 gives you a take-home pay of £2,035. Almost £600 out of it. It's nearly a third going on a car. And I think this is a big trap that people fall into. Even if you were to buy a used car, a 3-year-old car, maybe you could drop the payment by £100, something like that, but it's still a huge amount of money. So let me talk about how we avoided this trap. Back in 2015, I think it was, we needed a new car because my wife was just having our first child. She had a little Polo. Again, we'd bought that in cash. I think we paid 2 grand for it, sold it for 2.5 actually. But we needed a new car for her that was a bit bigger. The Polo wasn't going to be suitable for the baby. We bought her a 5 grand, 10-year-old BMW X3. We knew at the time we just didn't want to commit to an expensive car. We looked at new cars, they were £500 a month for the similar car. The 10-year one was absolutely fine, it was in good condition. Okay, it burnt a bit more fuel and it wasn't as modern as the new cars. But in 2015, we didn't mind any of that. So we bought a 54 plate, I remember it well, light blue X3. And we kept that car, in fact, for about 4 years, all the way through to 2017, when we bought this house. And I'll explain how buying that house released enough money for us to be able to then buy her dream car. And we bought a new car at that point. We knew that we'd converted earned income into passive income, and we knew that we could take on a liability underneath the value of the income that we were generating. So we bought a house in Astor Close for £350,000. We put down a £75,000 deposit. And you might say to me, Mark, it would take me 10 years to save up £75,000 if I was only saving 7 grand a year. I totally accept that. It's not how we did it. We didn't save the money. We saved the money, but we bought ourselves a house. So we bought a house, Erith, Durrian Way, and we paid, I think at the time, £175,000 for it. And we put down £15,000 as a deposit, or was it 17? It was 10%. So it's £17,500 as a deposit. And that, we then rented out the 2 spare bedrooms. And we managed to live there free of charge from something like 2010 when we bought it, all the way through to 2015 when we moved out. So that's 5 years of people paying us rent as lodgers, us using that money to pay the mortgage and bills, the house appreciating over that period of time. And by the time we moved out, we decided to refinance it and generate some money. And guess what? It'd gone up by about £100,000, which meant we could release £75,000. So whilst it wasn't as linear as maybe saving the money, the fact that we had lodgers paying our mortgage, paying our bills, again, it wasn't a plan back then. And if I could go back in time and create a plan, it would have had a better result. But at the time, it was just natural. We knew that we wanted to do things to increase our income. This is what we did. We knew we wanted to keep our expenses low. This is what we did. But it wasn't structured into a plan. Going forward to 2017, we bought Astor Close, £350,000. That was a mortgage of £900 after the £75,000 deposit. Bills of £500, management of £350. I put £300, sorry. And we're looking at this on a HMO basis. So it's a 4-bedroom house, and we had it as a 5-bedroomed, licensed, fully licensed HMO. And the rent on that in Didcot was £3,500 a month. The bills, I've just remembered I've missed off £500, was about £1,750, which would have left £1,750 in money to us as profit. And HMOs, if you can get about 50-50, you are doing very well. Obviously, interest rates rising, bills rising at the moment. It's not performing like this, but I have to say the rents are also rising. So if the figures aren't the same today, and I used yesterday's figures, but the figures aren't that different that this doesn't make any sense. So we ended up with about £1,750 a month. I've written down £1,800. If you consider we're higher taxpayers, 50% going in tax, that's a reasonable amount. We are left with £900 a month. At that point, we realised we could use that £900 to get my wife a much nicer car, as she deserved. We want our children to be carried around in a much safer vehicle. And even when we did that, my wife felt incredibly uncomfortable doing that, as it meant taking on a debt and meant taking on finance. Interestingly, the car we bought wasn't far off £75,000. So we could have used that £75,000 and bought the house. And instead of buying the house, we could have bought the car. Instead, we bought the house, did all of this, rented the house out, and we used the money to finance the car. And by doing that, we still own the house, we still own the car, and today we could generate more money and the finance is almost paid off. So guys, that is the trick when it comes to these sort of things in my mind. I believe that the wealthy, the people that really keep and generate wealth over time, are the people that understand, finance those liabilities, but use passive income made from assets to pay for them. If your passive income doesn't cover it, you can't afford it. How do you feel about that saying? Let me know down in the comments. I'm massively interested, and I will see you on the next video, guys. Cheers.